My name is Sean Miller, Senior Director, Operations and Sustainability at Envita Solutions. Envita Solutions is North America's premier total waste management company. You notice my title is Operations and Sustainability. They insisted the operations come first. So like many of the sustainable leaders in the room, I wear many hats involved in sustainability into it. I actually am a proxy here today. Our Vice President of Business Development, Kurt Wergau, is supposed to be here to do the MC. So, but he couldn't make it. So staying in the theme of the Olympics that are happening right now, I will be your silver medal. I will try to give better than a bronze performance. We're going to talk about an important topic, obviously, sustainable and circular materials. We'll dive into bigger than carbon. There's always talk about CO2 and carbon impacts, but there are much more negative externalities that come out of and affect the environment. We'll talk about sustainable chemistry, recycled and renewable feedstock, and then no conference would be complete without some AI chatter. So we'll talk about AI and life cycle intelligence. And that's about all you'll hear from me is the intros and the outros. But I do want to give you a why. I read just today that last Monday, July the 22nd, was the hottest day recorded in human history. And that's recorded in human history. That beats the record because anybody know when the record was set? Sunday, the day before. So there's some of your why. I did the really good little warning joke, but I've been told it might be a little polarizing, so I'm going to say that. So without further ado, let's kick off Bigger Than Carbon with Jesse Henry, co-founder of Heartland. This topic we'll talk about extraction creates hundreds of externalities, not just CO2 emissions. We'll delve into the depths of how the materials we use every day impact it. Jesse is the co-founder of Heartland, the leader in high-performance carbon-negative materials. Previously, Jesse was a national speaker for Tony Robbins and chief of staff at Intersection Capital. Earlier in his career, he wrote a book titled The Millennial Merger: How to Sell, Manage, Empathize, and Communicate a Multi-Generational Workforce. So please help me welcome Jesse Henry.
Welcome, everybody. Sasquatch found the razor. It's okay. I'm actually in my family. I'm the midget. For the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to share a little bit about my sustainability journey, how I got to where I'm at, a little bit about Heartland, a little bit about what I focus on. But I'd really like to share a story with you guys about a battle that's happening in the world, and it's a battle that you might not be aware of or looking at. And that battle is between toxicity and sustainability. You see, what is sustainable is not toxic, and what is toxic is not sustainable. Who here by show of hands would like to remove some toxins from their life? Okay. Well, hey, look, if you like toxins, I got some great news about pretty much every product that you use today. But if you don't like toxins, I'm going to have some great tools and resources for you towards the end of the presentation. How's that sound? This level of enthusiasm is not sustainable at all. So I initially decided to call this conversation Bigger Than Carbon. One, because the whole morning we talked about decarbonization. And number two is I really feel like carbon's been made out to be the enemy, right? We make carbon out to be the enemy, but I think the problem's actually bigger than carbon, which is why we're here today. And I'm really convinced that the enemy's not carbon. It's what carbon is distracting us from. You see, society's really reduced sustainability down to CO2. It's our legislators, it's our business leaders, it's, people in our environment. But CO2 is not killing us. It's things like extraction and pollution and toxins that are killing us. So we really need to figure out how to reduce these negative externalities, because the toxins that are negatively impacting our land, our air, our water, our plants, our animals, these are the toxins that are actually destroying our planet. And I would like to spend some time today focused on that. So if the question is, how do we reduce toxins? Really, the question that we're asking ourselves is, how do we reduce chemical exposure? Now, who agrees that chemical exposure is a big problem in 2024? By a show of hands. Okay, most of the room, if you don't, maybe we'll agree later. But if you're a fan of chemical exposure, you might not like what's going to come in the next few minutes. If you're wondering just like, what are the chemicals that I'm exposed to every day? I'm glad you asked. Here are just some of the everyday chemicals that we use throughout society. Some of these chemicals you might use every day. Others you might use not consistently. Who here has a favorite chemical that they use in the bathroom? Hand soaps, shampoos, conditioners, deodorants. Anyone have a favorite chemical? No one has a favorite chemical. Lucas, what's there? Look, what's the most common chemical that we all rely on every day? Maybe that's a better question. What was that? Water. I wouldn't necessarily consider that a chemical. I would consider maybe something like plastic a chemical, but plastic is really the main problem that I've been focused on over the past few years. You see, plastic provides the base of Maslow's hierarchy of needs: food, shelter, water, transportation. We wouldn't be able to package the food and water that we consume every day if we didn't have plastic. So without plastic, we'd really be living in the Stone Age. And every pound of plastic we have has, about 2 to 8 pounds of CO2. And so what I've been focused on over the past 4 years with Heartland is really how to reduce the negative impact that CO2 has on the planet. Now, 4 years ago, I started Heartland. Heartland's a material science company. Anyone know Heartland in the room? Not sure? Okay. 3 fans, 4 fans, 5 fans. You guys are all on my space top 8. Appreciate it. Heartland, for those of you who are familiar, is a manufacturer of natural fibers that reinforce plastics. And this is really what I thought was the big problem. I thought I was tackling the most meaningful problem on the planet, which is decarbonizing the chemical that we rely on for everyday goods. And I was tricked and I was deceived. And really, my whole sustainability journey at the beginning of Heartland really started a few months in. We had a first employee. His name's Eric Austermann. And Eric came up to me one day and was really asking about the thesis behind Heartland, why I started Heartland. And my goal was to build Earth's most sustainable company. It was very clear to me how to do that. And the answer was replicate supply chains of carbon negative materials. And I was so focused on carbon negative materials that I was missing the bigger picture. And this opportunity that Eric gave me really allowed me to step in and become a more sustainable leader. And what he taught me in this conversation was that sustainability is bigger than carbon. He said, Jesse, how do you show up in your relationships? What's the food you eat? What's the water you drink? How do you think? How do you respond? How do you react to people? Is that sustainable? I'm like, ask my therapist. No, it's not sustainable how I show up in my relationships. I think most people would say the way they show up in the intangibles isn't necessarily as sustainable as how they show up in the tangibles. And so for my whole career, I'm like focused on how to reduce the CO2 of plastic, thinking that I'm actually solving the problem, when the problem is I'm not showing up as a sustainable leader. And so in the next 25 minutes or so, I want to offer you guys the opportunity to really show up as a sustainable leader and really show up in a way that not only you would be proud of today, but your future self will be proud of. And so what I want to do right now is show you a little bit of my underbelly, show you some of the unsustainable things I was doing as a kid. This is a chemical that I'm about to show you I used for 15 years when I was like a prepubescent child, so about last year. And I really wanted to show this chemical to you because it was important in my life for 15 years. And maybe you have a similar chemical in your life. So this was the first love of my life, Clean and Clear Morning Burst with bursting beads. Has anyone seen this on store shelves or ever used this chemical? I'm sorry in advance. Look, this chemical, it's been there for me in sickness and in health. I thought it was going to be till death do us part. But as most of you know, who are quite a bit old, necessarily end up marrying the first love of life. We end up hopefully marrying someone who's a little more healthy. I really love this chemical because of how tight my skin felt after I washed it. It felt super clean. There was also these little bursting beads that I got to rub all over my face, start to exfoliate. Anyone want to take a wild guess what the bursting beads are made out of? I was rubbing microplastic all over my face for 15 years. Not super good for the body, but I'm sure whatever you're going through isn't necessarily as bad as rubbing microplastic all over you. But what I wanted to show you right now is the transition point for me and why I left the first love of my life. And the reason why I left is because of a website called EWG. Does anyone here use the website EWG? Anyone know? We have one person in the room. Oh my God, you're going to love me. Everyone else is going to want to put me in a straitjacket. Great. So this website, EWG, ranks chemicals on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being super healthy and good for the human body, and 10 being absolutely horrible. So I was at a 7. So just very bad instead of extremely bad. Here are a few of the ingredients that were really, really, really bad in the Clean and Clear Morning Burst with bursting beads. I just want everyone to like take a minute, take this slide in, and if you could just point out some of the things, some of the words that are popping out at you. Cancer. So fun one. Endocrine disruptors. Yeah. What else? Organ system toxicity. Exciting stuff. Yeah. Endocrine disruptors. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Look, I didn't realize what this stuff was doing to me. And I used this stuff for 15 years. I mean, this stuff's horrible. I've taken Mike Tyson level right hooks to my brain twice a day for 15 years. And what I didn't know was that materials like talc, and who here's familiar with talc by a show of hands? Anyone? Talc? Okay, more people familiar with talc, probably because of talc's cousin called asbestos. Asbestos is a mineral fiber in talc. It's commonly used in things like Chinese building materials. But you know what they say? You know, if it's not good enough for Chinese building materials, it's great for your skin. I'm joking. I haven't put asterisks next to this. This is 2024. And I don't want anyone saying Jesse told them to rub talc all over their skin. You know, for decades, talc was considered safe, right? And then years ago, they discovered it could cause things like breast cancer, lung cancer. You guys may have seen commercials when I was a kid. If you've been diagnosed with mesothelioma, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Anyone seen that commercial? I remember it very, very well. And these were talc losses. And, you know, just because people said that something was safe at one point, you know, in the 1970s or 80s doesn't mean it's safe today. So we really have to embed critical thinking into our personal decision-making model. And I'd like to propose one question that could really help us live a more sustainable life, which is, where do the materials that we use every day come from? And I know you're going to say the question's going to be, they come from horrible places. And you're right, but it's actually a lot worse than that. Today, I want to share with you really the implications of this question, right? And what we could do to live a more sustainable life. Does that sound good to everyone? Got another 20 minutes left. Does that sound good? Cool. Awesome. So what I really wanted to figure out was actually where these materials came from. So I reached out to our Lord and Savior. Not that Lord and Savior, ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT, I said, what are the most toxic materials that we use on a day-to-day basis? And here's what it spit out: mercury, arsenic, and a face wash that I relied on as a kid. But, you know, look, as we start to figure out how to live a more sustainable life, it's important not just ask, like, where do the materials we use every day come from, but also it's important to ask how these materials are produced and what the impacts are of externalities from these ingredients. Does anyone here know what an externality is? You can blurt it out. No hands. Yes? No one knows what an externality is. We're in a room of sustainability experts. It's an impact. It's an impact, a side effect, usually a negative side effect. Sometimes there could be good side effects, right? Here we go. Big fan of externalities in the back. Love it. And look, for my face wash, it was the microplastics in the environment. It's my endocrine system. It's cancer-causing agents. It's exposure to neurotoxins. And look, guys, my goal is not really to freak you out here. My goal is to really empower you with tools and resources to help really supercharge your sustainability journey. So right now we're focused on bringing awareness to these externalities that are created from extraction, pollution, and consumerism that we all go through today. And so we're going to talk about hundreds of externalities. One that you might be intimately familiar with is single-use packaging. Anyone here use a single-use piece of packaging? Anyone use plastic forks over the past few months, by a show of hands? Okay. We're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it too. It happens. And look, consumerism is really driving a mass extraction and pollution on our planet that's quickly depleting Earth's resources. As a forge, just an example, but if we don't seek to remove these externalities, we're going to destroy our planet. And carbon won't matter. It's going to be all the other externalities that do us in. This means really that the true costs of the products aren't really modeled into the financial. This is where society is fronting the cost for the businesses. So one of the externalities that you guys might be intimately familiar with, that I've become intimately familiar with through the agriculture supply chain, is a chemical called Roundup or Glyphosate. Who here's familiar with the chemical Roundup, by a show of hands? We're all familiar with it. Great. Just like Talc, it is great for your skin. Just kidding. Please don't ever touch this substance. It's a pesticide. It's sprayed on conventional crops. It's about $10 billion or so in settlements. Still probably thousands in the pipe. There's actually, the CDC did a study that said 87% of children have glyphosate in their blood, 87%. And so, you know, I won't go down the whole rabbit hole here on Roundup. It's got a really long track record of creating a lot of health complications. But what I want to do is share with you guys a little bit about some of the conventionally grown crops that are really bad for us and some of them that are good for us. Has anyone heard of the Dirty Dozen list? The one person who shook their head who liked EWG. Does anyone want to take a guess at what the fruit or vegetable with the highest contamination levels is in 2024? Wait, how'd you guys know? Wait, seriously? Kellen told everyone. He must have. Yes, you're right. It is strawberries. These strawberries are really unfortunate. I ate the strawberries this morning. I asked Kellen, I said, are these organic strawberries? He said, I don't know. I ate them just so that we'd all feel comfortable in the room together. We all did something bad this morning. It's okay. These, in fact, are frequently high in pesticide and chemical exposure because they have really porous skins and thin skins. So when they're sprayed with things like pesticides, the pesticides easily absorb into it. There was actually a story a few years back of Tom Brady doesn't eat strawberries. And so obviously the world's like, why doesn't Tom Brady eat strawberries? Well, it turns out Tom Brady doesn't eat strawberries because you can take conventionally grown strawberries that are sprayed with Roundup. You can put them in a juicer and you could take that strawberry juice and spray that on the crops as a pesticide. I know. And again, it's not to freak you out. It's to wake us all up to what's happening in the world. On the flip side, look, that would be like a sick person taking a dirty napkin and cleaning their foot screen with it. It's not how we want to be living our lives. On the flip side, can anyone guess what the cleanest fruit or vegetable is? Everyone said strawberries. How do you guys not know this one? It's actually avocados. So for you trendy millennials out there who like your avocado toast, you're safe. Personally, I was really surprised to see sweet corn on this list. Huge fan of mangoes. Any mango fans? I don't know. Mushrooms, pineapple. I was really encouraged to see this list. EWG does a great job of putting this list out every year, and the fruits and vegetables are always changing. But talking about which fruit or vegetable or human has more or less pesticides, it feels like a really weird conversation to have because we're all pointing the finger at someone else, right? We use lead and paint for decades. We use talc, we use Roundup, we use plastic, and there's a ton of other materials that are creating these externalities. It's not just us, it's creating externalities in the ecosystems that we live in. It's the land, it's the air, it's the water, air pollution, soil degradation, water contamination. These are problems that we face, problems that SPE actually talks about. When I was here last year, you guys were talking about water stewardship. I couldn't believe it. I go to conferences, all they talk about is carbon. Here we are at SPE talking about water stewardship. You guys are on the bleeding edge of some of these conversations. Now what I'm trying to do is bring that to the consumer products that we use every day and try to help the people reduce the chemical exposure that they're experiencing. So beyond CO2, we're not just talking about other pollutants. We're talking about labor problems, chemical exposure, habitat destruction, soil degradation. I mean, the problems go on and on. But it's not just humans that take the hit. It's soil that takes the hit. It's water that takes the hit. It's our brains and our bodies that take the hit. And sometimes we're not able to really see the hit that we're taking. And one of the big impacts of chemical exposure on the human body that's hard to see is on the endocrine system. Who here knows what the endocrine system does? Anybody? Only a few people. Come on, you guys know what the endocrine system does. What does it do? It regulates hormones. It regulates and produces hormones. And this isn't just, for growth and development. It's for metabolism. It's for reproduction. So like the really, really meaningless stuff. And obviously by meaningless, I mean like some of the most important stuff that we can focus on as a society. Endocrine disruptors are everywhere. It's in our sunscreen. It's in fragrances, herbicides, pesticides, phthalates. It's really, really, really scary stuff because we can't see the impact on our endocrine system. One of the things that's really important to know is that the chemicals industry saved the world. So yeah, we're sitting here talking about all the externalities, all the bad things that happen, but the potato famine was solved because of chemicals. Look at the pharmaceutical industry. Look at what's happened to life expectancy, right? Life expectancy is extended 10, 20, 30, 40% in the past decades. Chemical industry saved us. And as it saved us, these advancements in chemistry, it's also created a lot of problems. And so we need to really be conscious of what are the endocrine disrupting chemicals that are prevalent in society. And I'm sure you guys can already guess what's my favorite endocrine disrupting chemical. My face wash, of course. You see the other Sasquatches in my family, they don't use Clean and Clear, much larger humans, hairier humans. But most people here don't use Clean and Clear, which is good. Very happy for you about that. So you might be wondering, what other endocrine disrupting chemicals do we encounter in our day-to-day lives? Phthalates is really the big one for me. Phthalates, if you guys don't know, the plasticizers, they increase flexibility, transparency, durability, and longevity in plastics. They're in automotive parts, like what you guys manufacture, and vinyl flooring. They're also in our shampoos and soaps and sunscreens. So what I did is I hired the Taco Bell dog. He agreed phthalates kind of suck. And I was telling him about the Say No to Drugs campaign. And so for you guys, when someone asks you if you want phthalates, what do you say? Reach in and you gotta say, no thanks. One of the other endocrine disrupting, sorry, I'm cracking myself up here too. This is so much fun. I've never done anything like this. I'm just really enjoying it. One of the chemicals that I'm sure everyone in the room is intimately familiar with is a chemical called PFAS. Anyone here know what PFAS is? Woo! PFAS fans. I love it. Look, PFAS is 10,000 different chemicals. It's typically a barrier layer technology. Teflon is the barrier layer that we're most intimately familiar with from the 60s and 70s. But over the years, it's been put in all these other things, not only for heat barrier layers, but oil and moisture. And I'm sure maybe you guys remember 10, 20 years ago, There were all these commercials where a guy would take, mustard and spray it on his pants and the mustard would fall off, and then he'd spill wine on his shirt and the wine would fall off. And we're like, man, this is the coolest tech ever. And now we exist in 2024 and we realize this stuff is absolutely freaking killing us. So, society has labeled these forever chemicals, and really they're considered forever chemicals because there's a carbon fluorine bond. And there's a carbon fluorine bond because, carbon has an extra electron and fluorine's looking for an extra electron. And so when they link up, they create an inseparable bond, or referred to in this conversation as a toxic relationship. But the problem is not just in Teflon or moisture wicking clothing. The problem's everywhere. It's receipt paper. It's fast food wrappers. It's microwave popcorn bags. Unfortunately, ladies, cosmetics, these chemicals are everywhere. And barrier layers are very effective and very valuable and very good. PFAS and phthalates are just a couple of the synthetic chemicals that we use every day. What are other chemicals that negatively impact us? To me, plastic is the big one. It's the one I've been focused on for years. And it's the chemical that most of us in the room rely on. I think the question we should be asking is, how is plastic impacting our hormone production? And, if you're looking for that answer, you're really going to enjoy this graph behind me. In the red, you'll see men's sperm count dropping from about 338 to about 138. And in the white, you'll see the increase in plastic production from about 40 million tons to 350 million. Scary shit, guys. I mean, this is a male fertility crisis. And we need someone or something to save us. Is Hayden from Padnos in the room? Stand up, Hayden. Hayden told me if I called his name out, he would stand up. He told me you would. I'm electing you. We need 10,000 of you. It's going to be like in Star Wars, Attack of the Clones. We're going to get 10,000 payments. We're going to populate the world. Solve this problem we got behind us. You down, Hayden? I chose the worst slide to call Hayden out on. I'm so sorry. Hayden worked with Padnos over the years. Hayden's incredible what he does. Hayden, we don't need more plastics. We don't need more microplastics. These are the little particles that we're all intimately familiar with. Someone earlier mentioned that their kid was shaming them over plastic bottles. I don't know if you saw the research that came out a few months back. Every plastic water bottle has about 250,000 microplastics in it. That's really, really scary stuff. The microplastics aren't just popping up in our water bottles. It's the nylon and polyester in our clothing that's then being washed and dried and then going through our water systems. It's also the teenager down your street who might peel out in the driveway, and then it rains, and then the microplastics from the rubber in the tires evaporate and go up into the ecosystem, and then it rains. Microplastic. It's like if Darth Vader were to invent photosynthesis. Sorry, I crack myself up, guys. Look, the average human eats about 5 grams of plastic a week. I put a picture of a credit card for visualization because a credit card's about 5 grams. This is not just in our food and in our water. It's also in the air. It's in our personal care products. It's in our packaging. And I obviously, got a lot of microplastic in me over the last 15 years, scrubbing microbeads into my face. Some of the other pollutants that you guys might be familiar with, methane is a bigger brother, 84 times greater greenhouse gas potential than CO2 on a 20-year timeline, and 28 times greater global warming potential than CO2 on a 100-year timeline. And makes carbon look like a little peon in the grand scheme of things. So this isn't even covering mercury, arsenic, lead. I mean, if I asked you if, you wanted an inhaler with mercury in it, probably say no. Probably, right? It's not a controversial topic. I talk about carbon, half the room doesn't agree with it. But if I talk about arsenic inhalers or mercury inhalers, there's not really an argument over it. So if we can all agree that it's not controversial, then it should be pretty easy to agree that we should remove these types of pollutants, not just from our air, but our land, or water, or plants, or animals, and every other living thing. Here's an image of CO2 getting all the attention, while all the other bad greenhouse gases are left by the wayside. Look at how pissed off mercury is that no one's talking about mercury. I get it. Carbon's become the influencer of all greenhouse gases, right? If I was a pollutant, I'd be pissed. Everyone's talking about carbon, but remember, guys, carbon's not the enemy. It's the enemy because it's distracting us from other pollutants and other toxins that are killing every living thing on this planet. So I get back to this conversation that I had with Eric Austermann, Heartland's first employee. And guys, I never thought I'd go this far down the rabbit hole. I mean, this conversation that I had with Eric brought me on the biggest sustainability journey I could have ever asked to go on. I went vegan. I went gluten-free. I tried every chemical, every workout, every supplement. I nearly lost my mind to try to figure out what is sustainable. And I'm no longer vegan and gluten-free. If that gives you, a tinge of understanding about what is sustainable. But on the flip side of this, guys, I've also, I've lost a lot of relationships over the past few years. I got in a car accident a few months ago that almost freaking killed me. I've gone through some volatility over the past few months professionally that's driven me to a pretty crazy place. So it's really, really promoting me to dive in. As I tell you guys this, I'm going through my own journey on what does sustainability look like in my relationships? How am I showing up in my communication style? How am I reacting to the things that are happening in the world today? We live in the craziest time ever in society. And now more than ever, we need sustainability leaders. So the opportunity that I'm presenting you guys with is really to show up as a sustainable leader. And for me, sustainability, it's just another form of efficiency, right? Every single executive at every Fortune 500 company, they've been making decisions based on efficiency forever. So all we need to do is start speaking in their language and understand that efficiency and sustainability are really tied together. They're one and the same. And becoming a more sustainable leader is really about understanding the habits and patterns that will bring you sustained value over a period of time. These intangibles are a lot harder to manage than the tangibles. And for me, bringing sustainability into my relationships is probably the easiest way to embed sustainability into my life. Who here thinks that embedding sustainability into their relationships would be a productive practice for them? By a show of hands? Yes, super, super important. Here's what I've learned over the past few years. Relationships aren't just interpersonal. What's the most important relationship you have? The one with yourself. The person you talk to the most is yourself. But we consider relationships this interpersonal thing. But relationships, we have relationships with ideas, with things, with nature, the past, the present, the future. Relationships just define how you connect to other forms of energy. And if you bring sustainability into your relationships, you're bound to start thinking and communicating and reacting in a way that's more sustainable. The intersection for me of where the tangible and the intangible actually meet is brain chemistry. And we could think of our brain like the trading arm of the human body. It's an asset manager, and we're always looking to receive new inputs and deciding what outputs should be created, right? So if we feed our body Cheetos, we create cells and energy from Cheetos. And if we feed our body hugs and compliments and sunlight and laughter, we're really creating pretty cool outputs that drive our ability to test, to feel good and to thrive. And so these are commonly referred to as happy chemicals. It's really our responsibility to figure out how do we get more of these happy chemicals in a way that's sustainable. So those are some of the intangibles. In the physical world, I want to share with you a couple of tools, resources that I've used over the years to help me build a more sustainable life. There's no like, I don't have anything to sell you here. There's no blood ritual. This is just apps and websites that you guys can use to advance your own sustainability journey. So I mentioned EWG.org a few times. We got a few fans in the room. She's head nodding, which means I have her approval here to share this with you guys. This is one of my favorite websites. EWG stands for the Environmental Working Group. They're one of the leading nonprofits. They rated my Clean and Clear morning burst with bursting beads, but they also rank the chemicals that you're using, your deodorant, your shampoo, your conditioner, your sunscreen, the chemicals that you use in your day-to-day life. You can find on this platform, and this platform will not only list the product, they'll list the different ingredients, and then also what the research says the impact of those ingredients are. To follow along with that, EWG also has a water database. I don't want to get into water conspiracy theories. I didn't bring my tinfoil hat today, but I do recognize there's tons of different types of contaminants in our tap water. And if we can understand those contaminants, we're better equipped to navigate better drinking water. My favorite tool to use when grocery shopping is an app called Yuka. Yuka, you can scan the barcode, can look at all the ingredients. It'll tell you which ones create health complications, and it'll also recommend healthy alternatives. So here's my Yuka. I love sriracha. I love pickles. I used to love these protein bars. These are just, again, this is some of my underbelly, some of the chemicals that I didn't realize I was ingesting through the food that I love. And again, I'm showing this to you guys so that you guys realize, hey, some of the chemicals that you're using might not be sustainable, and some of the food that you might be consuming might follow suit as well. So unfortunately, we kind of have to come to the conclusion that there's a lot of toxins around us that can harm us. And we've spoken about a few today, but really the goal is to take control of your biology and your destiny. And the way we would do that is by removing the tangible toxins and the intangible toxins that are impacting our life. So how do we do that? We ask better questions. We ask bad questions, we get bad answers. We ask good questions, we get good answers. So the 3 questions we've been focused on today: where do the materials we use every day come from? What are the areas of my life that could become a little more sustainable? And what are externalities created from the products that I use? These questions can help you become really a more thoughtful, empathetic, and intentional leader that your team probably needs from you. And so part of the game we have to play here is predictive analytics. It's not just understanding what the world looks like today. It's what's the world going to look like in 20 years? This is the research I wish I had 20 years ago. I didn't, and I was killing myself for 15 years without knowing it. And so part of this game that we're playing is, what is the research going to say in 2045? We don't know yet, but you got to tap into that intuition. Your body knows what's good for you. Your body knows what doesn't. So instead of me telling you what's good for you, ask yourself what's good for you. For me, my recommendation always is natural solutions. They're very familiar to our bodies, our minds, our genealogy over many, many, many years. This doesn't mean to go rub yourself down with poison ivy. You know, I didn't tell you, Jesse told me to start hugging cactuses because they're organic. No cactus hugging here, right? I don't want anyone to take this out of context, but I do firmly believe that you can find food and clothing and pharmaceuticals and other types of things that you ingest in your life that are natural, can be sustained over many, many years. For those of you who are large consumers of raw materials or large producers of sustainable materials, we'd love to discuss maybe the opportunity to work together. I've been working with sustainable materials for the past 4 years, have become intimately familiar on how to commercialize them. So first off, if you're a sustainable materials company, thank you for fighting the good fight. It is not easy to do what you're doing. And if you're a large consumer of raw materials and you're looking to reduce Scope 3 carbon emissions and regenerate the raw materials that your company relies upon, we'd love to chat further. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. It's become really clear that the chemicals we're using are really impacting our day-to-day life. And without sustainable alternatives, it's really clear that we're heading down the wrong paths. Kellen wanted my session to go till tomorrow morning. I politely declined, but I really appreciate Kellen for letting me do this. This is my first time ever attempting anything like this. So I'm super grateful. I really enjoyed our time together today. And I'm excited to work alongside you to build a sustainable future. Thank you.